A nurse works 12-hour shifts, picks up overtime, and still checks her bank app before buying groceries. Meanwhile, someone with an average job buys a small duplex with a mortgage, rents out the other unit, and their net worth jumps when housing prices rise. That second person might not be smarter, and they might not work harder, they just have more leverage. If that feels unfair, stay with me, because the point isn't to rant, it's to explain the machinery. Most people grow up with a simple formula: be competent, work hard, get rewarded. The reality is more complicated, because the economy pays extremely well for things that scale, and it pays predictably for things that don't. Intelligence and effort help, but mostly inside systems where your output is traded for a wage. Leverage is what lets your output multiply without your hours multiplying. Once you see leverage clearly, a lot of modern money outcomes stop feeling mysterious. A tool that moves more weight than your arms can. Financial leverage is the obvious one, like mortgages, business loans, and margin, where borrowed money magnifies gains and losses. Labor leverage is when you use other people's time through hiring, management, outsourcing, or platforms that coordinate work. Code and media leverage is when you build something once, like software, a video, a book, or a licensing deal, and it can be sold again without starting from zero. Network and distribution leverage is an audience, a brand, a marketplace slot, or partnerships that put your product in front of buyers. Legal and tax leverage is using entities like an LLC or corporation, contracts, and limited liability, so risk is boxed in and cash flow is routed efficiently. The system structurally rewards leverage, because the system structurally rewards ownership. When you sell hours, you get paid a rate. And that rate is bounded by job ladders, budgets, and what the labor market will replace you with. When you own assets, you can get paid because the asset went up, because it throws off cash, or because someone else's work increased its value. Wages track productivity imperfectly, and bargaining power matters, but a share of an asset can compound without you clocking in. Pause and reflect. Is your income mostly tied to hours? Or can it grow while your hours stay flat? Compounding is the quiet engine here. A 1% edge applied to a big base, repeated for years, becomes a gap that looks like talent from the outside. Leverage adds convexity, which is a simple idea. Limited downside, large upside. If you have reserves and you can survive losses, you can take more shots, and a few winners can dominate your results. If you live paycheck to paycheck, one mistake can end the experiment, so you're forced into safer, smaller bets, even if you're smarter. Credit access makes the gap wider, because the cost of money is different for different people. A homeowner with stable income might borrow at a lower rate than a renter with the same paycheck and no collateral. Big institutions borrow cheaper than small businesses, and they can refinance when rates drop. When interest rates are low, asset prices often rise because buyers can afford larger loans, and that lifts the value of houses, stocks, and private businesses. If your main asset is your paycheck, you feel the price increases. If your main asset is a portfolio, you can feel protected by the same forces. Look at housing, because it's the cleanest example. With a mortgage, you control a large asset with a relatively small down payment. So a 5% move in the house price can be a huge move on your equity. Renters pay for shelter, but they don't get the upside when the neighborhood gets more expensive. Next, private equity and real estate syndications often stack leverage, other people's capital plus debt, plus fees for managing the deal, plus a slice of the upside. In tech, one engineer can write code that serves 10 million users, while a nurse can only help one patient at a time, no matter how skilled she is. In media, a single video can sell ads, drive affiliate sales, and bring in sponsors for years, even if you made it on one weekend. In corporations, limited liability means owners can take risks, knowing the company can fail without automatically taking their personal assets with it. And bankruptcy law can cap damage in ways individuals don't experience. This is where the intelligence trap shows up. Smart, conscientious people often optimize for being indispensable inside a job. And that can raise their wage. But it rarely changes the shape of their income. The ceiling is still a salary band, a promotion ladder, and a manager's budget. Merit feels like the rule because effort is visible, but incentives are the rule because incentives are what gets paid. The economy rewards what scales, not what is admirable. Pause and reflect again. If you doubled your skill, would your income double, or would you just become the person everyone relies on? Innovation still matters, but the payout depends on who controls distribution and ownership. Inventors create ideas, operators turn ideas into reliable products, and owners decide how the cash flows are split. Sometimes one person is all three, but often they're not. A brilliant feature can be copied, a brand can block it, and a platform can change the terms overnight. That's not a moral judgment, it's a map of where bargaining power sits.
If you want to predict who gets rich, look less at who had the best idea, and more at who owned the channel and the cap table.
So, what do you do with this without turning into a cynic or a gambler? First, train your eyes to look for ownership, equity, profit share, royalties, revenue share, or a small stake in a boring business with real cash flow. Second, build things that scale. Software tools, a content library, templates, systems, or intellectual property that can be reused. Third, treat debt like a power tool, not an identity, and match it to stable cash flows with buffers. Fixed rate beats variable when your budget is tight, and leverage on fragile income is how people get wiped out. Fourth, increase access to leverage by building credibility. Clean books, predictable results, relationships, and the ability to explain your numbers plainly. Fifth, avoid fake leverage, like high-status busyness, lifestyle inflation, and working harder inside a capped job while telling yourself it's an investment. Here are a few rules of thumb to keep in your head. If your income stops when you stop, it's linear, so protect yourself with savings and skills, and don't confuse exhaustion with progress. If you borrow, be able to survive a bad year without selling at the worst time. If you're building an audience or a product, own the email list, the customer relationship, or the code, not just the platform account. If an opportunity has unlimited upside, ask what the downside is and who is holding it. The system isn't fair, but it is legible, and learning to see leverage is how you stop blaming yourself for outcomes that were never about effort alone. The line to remember is this: the economy pays best for scaled ownership, not for personal excellence. That doesn't make excellence useless. It just means excellence is most powerful when it's attached to leverage you control. If you want, comment with one place in your life where your income is linear and one lever you could build without taking reckless risk. If this helped you see the rules more clearly, subscribe, because the next step is learning how to choose arenas where your upside isn't capped before you even start.